So these are what I call the Alexander mirrors. And they have a rich history from the past. And in the 1960s, Harry Bohr and his son David and Mindy, who had the JD department store, which was located across the street near the tax service and the sewer authority. So in the 1960s, they purchased Alexander's Meat Market to move their JD department store across the street. And of course, there was a lot of interest in the contents of the store, and all the contents would be torn out to make way for a clothing store. And there was an auction there in the mid-1960s to sell the furnishings of the business. So who would ever want to buy furnishings of a meat market to put in their house or wherever? But I was at the auction, and these mirrors came up for sale at the auction. So if for no other reason than the history of the mirrors and the workmanship that went into them, I purchased the mirrors for $28. So the mirrors had to be torn out of the building, taken out of the building, and at that time, Ringler's appliance store was where the old movie theater was at that time. And currently, that location is a neighborhood services thrift shop. So the mirrors were taken out of the Alexander's Meat Market and put up into the balcony of the old movie theater for storage. And they stayed there until about 1978, when the Oxford News Shop, which was at 33 South 3rd Street, added on to the back of the building for their business, where we had a card and gift shop, and the mirrors were part of the gift shop display area. So they stayed there until about 3 years ago. Well, just going back a little bit, in around 2005, the dean and I sold the Oxford News Shop to the Vatalanos, and they conducted the business there for a while, and then they closed it. So the mirrors were in the back of the building, and they decided to sell them. So, appreciating the mirrors, and they appreciated greatly in price, I encouraged the Oxford Area Historical Association to purchase the mirrors, and with financial help from Carl Fretz and Ben Byler, the Historical Association purchased the mirrors. So then, that was about 3 years ago. So then the owners wanted the mirrors out of the building, so we contacted the library to see if they would be interested in having the mirrors here. So the mirrors were moved from the back of what's now Flickerwood to this current location, which seems to be a perfect fit. And it's an appropriate area to have them, I feel. So, now I'll tell you a little bit about the other side of the story. They're the Alexander's mirrors. And Clyde Alexander was born in 1885 in Oxford. And his family, since 1826, had a business in Oxford, either a grocery store or a meat market. So Clyde graduated from Oxford High School in 1902 and entered the business, and eventually he would be the owner of the business. And the business started on Market Street by his grandfather, and it was eventually moved to 3rd Street at 29 South 3rd, where currently Outback Trading Company has their outlet. So the business was Alexander's Meat Market. It was a thriving business. He married a young woman from Homeville, Catherine Bickering, and they lived over the meat market, and she sometimes helped in the business, and the business prospered, and let me see when she died. Okay, Mrs. Bickering died in 1954, and Mr. Alexander died in 1966. So as I said, the business was prosperous. It closed in 61, but Mr. Alexander stayed there until 66, and Mrs. Bickering had a considerable estate from her family. So at Mr. Alexander's death, well, let me go back a little bit more to Mr. Alexander. Mr. Alexander was active in the community. He was on the borough council. He was a Rotarian. He was a member of the fire company and the Rotary Club. So this was his home. And his grandfather, Thomas, at one time was treasurer of the Oxford Library. And because of him, the books from the library were placed in Alexander's Meat Market for storage when the library came upon financial difficulties. So the Alexanders always had an interest in the library. So at his death, he left to the library $250,000 for the brick portion of the current library, the Catherine V. Alexander Memorial Library. Another interesting fact is that also in his will, he left $3,500 to each one of the 9 churches in the area, and also to some health agencies. And I can tell you 50 years later, the Oxford Presbyterian Church from the Alexander estate, which is administered by the Philadelphia Foundation in Philadelphia, the Oxford Presbyterian Church continues to get approximately $35 each year, and I'm $3,500 each year from the foundation. And I imagine there are other churches in the area that participate in the same manner. So the Alexander Mirrors have a rich heritage, as does the Oxford Library, and his name and his family's name continues to move along in the Oxford community. Thank you.